Hi everyone. So today we're going to talk about how to create work-life balance. I have in the past been absolutely terrible at this. I haven't had any work-life balance whatsoever, and it's led me to becoming either burnt out or feeling very burnt out on a pretty regular basis in the past. Over the last few months and years, I've been trying to create a better balance between my work life and my personal life. It often overlaps. An example of this is this video. Is this my personal life or is this my work life? I'm not really too sure, but I've definitely gotten better at it recently. I therefore want to share what worked for me, hoping that number one, it might help somebody, and number two, it helps me because it helps me reinforce what I've been doing differently recently and how that's helped me. I hope that by sharing this in the future, I will continue to do these things and also it might help somebody else too. Okay, so before we get into the content, just a quick ask. For the YouTube algorithm, it would really help out if you click the like button, and if you also wanted to subscribe as well, that would be pretty cool. I've got lots of very interesting videos releasing soon on every different type of business topic you could ever imagine, so if that's the thing that interests you, please come join my channel. Okay, so the first thing here is managing your time, or more specifically, managing your energy. I like to think about it in energy, not because of crystals or anything like that, but because it's a better metric for me than time. Something can take, say, 30 minutes, but it might be incredibly draining and take a lot of energy for you to do that. For example, if you spent 30 minutes editing a YouTube video like I will do in the future after I finish filming this, or if I was to spend 30 minutes on a HIIT class, one of those things would be much more energy draining than the other one, perhaps arguably draining in different ways. One of those could be more draining mentally and one of those could be more draining physically. So when I say time management, I don't necessarily just mean time. What I mean is kind of the encapsulating pieces. But here are the things that I do to help manage my time or my energy or whatever kind of metric you want to put around that for yourself. Okay, so the first thing I do is I dedicate time to my priorities. At the start of every week, I figure out what my priorities for that week are. I then go through them day by day as I'm looking at what's coming up in my day, both in my work life and my personal life, to see whether any of those priorities fit into that day. Hopefully they do, and if they do, when am I going to do them? An example of this is my huge whiteboard I have here. In true Blue Peter style, here's one I created earlier. On my whiteboard I have 3 large columns, and if you regularly watch these videos you'll see that sometimes they have way more information on them, sometimes like today they kind of are missing lots of information. The reason behind that is as I go through my week and as I go through my day, I start rubbing things off, perhaps new things are added too, and that's okay. But as I start progressing through the goals and the things that I want to do, I physically remove them from my board. As you might be able to see from the layout of this space, it occupies quite a big footprint. I find that quite useful because it means I can't ignore the things that I definitely should be doing, but perhaps aren't the most interesting things to be doing. Perhaps there's a lot of life admin that needs doing. Perhaps I need to send off posts or something like that. Those things are as important sometimes as some of the bigger strategic pieces in your life. Because without doing some of those, some of what makes your life special and some of what makes your life what it is today starts to crumble a bit, and that's not very good. So whether it's a boring admin task or relatively boring admin task, or whether it's a big strategic thing you want to do in your life, make sure that you plan it and prioritize it. Ideally, put it somewhere that you always see. There's also the phrase work smarter, not harder, and I think it's a bit of a buzzword at this point, but it does ring true. I sort of take an interesting approach to this. I like to make it more actionable than just the phrase smarter, not harder, because a million different gurus and internet kids will tell you that. What I like to do is think about this in 2 different ways. I like to automate whenever I can. This helps me improve my efficiency. And as the second thing, I like to outsource whatever doesn't make sense for me to do, and that helps me improve my effectiveness. As an example of the first point, the automate point, I use an app called If This Then That. It's available on iOS and Android, and I'm sure Windows Phone if people still use those things. And it helps you create triggers. So for example, the smaller, more mundane things in my life are usually done via automated triggers, which means I don't have to even think about doing them anymore. So I invest, say, 5 minutes of time in setting something up to automate, whether it's as simple as turning my light off or automating my bank statements, whatever that might be. Those things are done so I don't have to think about them anymore. As another example of automation, you might perhaps work a lot with Excel or Google Sheets. There's a lot you can do there to automate. For example, in VBA, you might be able to create some fairly simple scripts which automate, for example, sending out of the Excel form or whatever it might be. These help make sure that you're working on things that are actually interesting and drive the real value versus the more mundane. In terms of the outsourcing part, I found this really useful for myself when building a website. When looking to create a website, I could have coded my own. That's absolutely something I could have done. However, that's a poor time investment for me to make. Whilst it might take me just say a few hours now to create something, perhaps I'm using templates, perhaps I'm just using a simple React app or something, just a few hours now end up being quite a lot of time in the future. For example, you need to maintain those libraries and you need to make sure the security patches are there, and you need to kind of just manage it in general. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying that that's perhaps not the best use of my time. So therefore, I found this great website builder called Card. I'll do a video about them in the future. The person who created it is pretty incredible, and I have a lot of respect for them. It's like $19 a year. It took me, I'm not kidding, literally 60 seconds to create a website. Obviously, writing the content and making it personalized took longer than that, because that's the important bit, right? It's not making the actual thing itself, at least not for me. In terms of managing your time or managing your energy, something I found really useful is adding a healthy amount of social pressure. So for example, with work, what I might do is I often sit on a Google Hangout or Zoom call or Teams meet or something with a group of other people. We might not necessarily be working and our cameras might not be on and we might not be actively communicating, but what we do is we set a topic for the 30 minutes or half an hour, that's the same amount of time. Sorry. We each set a goal for the start of whatever time block it is, say 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, something like that. And then off we go. We keep our mics on so that we can hear each other working. It creates a bit of an office-y type environment. I don't do it all the time. I just find it really useful when motivation is lacking and I want to maintain that pace that I need to get whatever it is done. If you're not working with others, perhaps you're more of a solo worker, or perhaps you're an entrepreneur or a solo founder, and you don't have easy access to others. Something that I found really useful, and I've picked up a lot of tips from the public sector people who tweet and things like that, massive thanks to them, is they tweet at the start of their day or they post online, whatever forum is best for you, and they say what they intend to do. Usually takes like a week by week basis where, say first thing on a Monday morning when you might be planning your week, instead of just planning it and keeping it to yourself, they plan it and they share elements of it. Perhaps there's certain meetings they can't share or certain sessions that wouldn't be applicable, but for the most part they share their intentions day by day, and I think that's awesome. I have a lot of respect for that, because not only does it hold you accountable for doing those things, no one's going to fire you and no one's going to metaphorically beat you up if you don't do those things. It's more the mental pressure that you put on yourself in order to go and do those and do the best job you can. So perhaps if you don't have easy access to others or a network of other people, perhaps just openly sharing what you intend to do, perhaps in a 4-hour block of time or a day, and then going back and revisiting that at the end of the day and saying, yes, I did do that. Another one that I learned quite a painful lesson of in the last few months is around multitasking. Humans are not built to multitask. That's why we have processors inside of our computers. Instead of forcing your brain to have to juggle so many different tasks at the same time, what I've done is I've created a kind of linear thread, not a waterfall, but a linear thread. So I have task A, B, C, and D, and once I have finished task A, I'll move on to task B, and then when I finish task B, I move on to task C. Perhaps some of these overlap, life is life, so you might have a certain meeting that you might need to prepare for or something like that, but then just reorder some of those buckets of work. Trying to juggle so many things at the same time isn't actually efficient for your brain and won't help you in the long run. If you find yourself multitasking a lot, just remember that's for your computer to do, not your brain. One that's kind of to do with managing your time and managing your energy that you might not expect to hear, especially on a video like this, is around chores. And I think chores are very interesting because most people ignore them for as long as possible. I used to be that person. I used to wait until the very end of the week. It would be Sunday afternoon and I'd be trying to relax and there would be a pile of washing up and loads of washing to do and I hadn't hoovered and all of these other chores. That meant that in that critical time that I had, those 2 days a week, in order to recover, I wasn't using the best of that time. Because instead of recovering, I was working but in a different way. I was doing my chores. So what I try and do now is break them up day by day throughout the week. Perhaps there's an afternoon call that you're just listening into Instead of clearing some of your email inbox, perhaps clear some of your washing up instead. It sounds ridiculous, but now I've started batch processing my chores, I find myself with way more time at the weekend in order to actually relax and actually recoup and do whatever it is I need to do for my personal life. The next section is around prioritizing my health. And I don't like saying the word prioritization because I struggle to say it all the time, but I think it's really important when it comes to your health. I'm really bad at prioritizing my health. I often sit in front of a computer for way too many hours, and perhaps that time is really productive and useful, but it's not helpful for my body. So what I've tried to do is, for example, in downtime between meetings, I'll go slightly just off to my desk and I'll be doing squats, or I'll go do some press-ups or something like that. It sounds really cringy when I say it out loud, but just a few of those between every meeting means that you actually end up doing a mini workout every day on top of any workouts that you might already be doing. On the subject of workouts, I've been trying to do 3 a week. I've struggled in the last few weeks because it's been so cold and I've not wanted to go outside and run, or I've not wanted to go outside and go on really long walks. I need to get back into this, and that's why I'm saying it on this video, that I have to go and do that now. I have to force myself to go outside, go for those runs, go for those really long walks, and go for those hikes with a dog that I have access to. His name is Winston, he's really cute, and basically just go outside and exercise. One that's been really useful for me is choosing the healthier snacks. I used to be someone who reached for a bag of crisps or a chocolate bar, and that didn't do any good for me. I'm still paying the price for that. I'm having to work off all of these calories that I've eaten in the past. And so instead, when I'm hungry and peckish, I reach for some fruit, or I reach for a healthier option. Perhaps a smoothie there for me to drink instead. And that smoothie is freshly made, so it's got all of the good stuff in it. It's not just full of sugar. Another one, and this is the final one with prioritizing your health, is around drinking enough water. I keep a water bottle next to my desk at all times, and I make sure it's topped up too. Having an empty water bottle to grab doesn't do anything. It makes me frustrated, and it also makes it so that I reach for it, I go and drink, and then I'm like, oh, there's nothing there, and I put it back. But I'm still thirsty, I just haven't actually drunk anything. So I always make sure it's full. So that might mean making multiple trips in the day to go and fill this thing up, but actually that's really good because it makes sure that I also get up from my desk and I have a bit of a micro break too. Make sure you are drinking enough water. The last section is around nurturing friendships. During COVID, I've had a huge reliance on my friendships. They've been absolutely fantastic, and to be honest, they've probably helped keep me alive. They're so great. Humans are social animals, and we need other people, other humans in our life that we connect with. Due to the global pandemic, that connection might not be what it used to be. We might not go to bars and restaurants with each other, but instead we have, say, Zoom meetings or walking phone calls, or perhaps with a mask on, of course, and maintaining social distance, we go for walks in the local park together. Making sure that you have that connection with the people that you care about most in the world is so important, especially right now. What I've done recently, which has really helped me, and again, I'm saying this because it might help other people, and also because it helps me reinforce what worked for me and gives me some sort of social pressure that I have to continue doing the stuff that's actually good for me. The things that have worked well for me recently are scheduling video calls in, or time for video calls. I don't necessarily have to do them. Video call fatigue or Zoom fatigue is a real thing that we're definitely all facing, at least in the UK, because it's currently lockdown 3 or lockdown 29, whatever the number is now. But it's been nearly a year working from home for a lot of people in the UK. Having to spend so much time on our screens has taken a big impact. So when I say schedule time for video calls, it doesn't necessarily have to be a video call. It could be a phone call, it could be a walking meeting. Go get your big headphones, put them on and go and walk outside in the park whilst talking with the people that you care about the most. I found that a fantastic way to unwind in the evenings, and I think it might work for you too. Another opportunity is to use a service such as Meetup. So meetup.com is amazing because it has so many different meetups happening almost every single day for every category that you could ever anticipate. Meetup.com is a great place to go and meet up. It's a term that describes a term. I found it really useful in finding new groups of people that I might find interesting and that they might find me interesting too. The majority of their sessions are happening remotely now, and all of the sessions that I join are definitely remote. I'm not meeting any new people in person until I have a vaccine for sure. So because of that, physical location doesn't matter as much, at least not right now. So don't be put off when it says, oh, this meetup, this group is X miles away from you. It doesn't really matter at the moment. And if you build any friendships and relationships with those people, perhaps you could sustain those into the future once life gets back to whatever life will get back to. Anyway, meetup.com I find fantastic, and I think you might find some great groups too. Okay, those are my 3 kind of buckets of tips. Hopefully those things are useful. Again, I found them really useful, and I hope that you find them useful too. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and have a lovely day. Thanks. Bye.